Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing amazing. Britain and Ireland, we have the languages via history with Hilbert. Let's jump right in.
English is the third most widespread language in the world, behind Spanish and Standard Chinese. It's spoken from England to Canada to South Africa to New Zealand to Australia. You know, thanks to the old
That's primary, and there's everyone else in the world just about has it as a secondary.
empire. Wait, that's not what I'm meant to be talking about in this video. What was it? History with Hilbert, history, Dutch, Frisians, languages. That's the one. In this video, I'm going to be having a look at which other languages are spoken in the British Isles, because while English is its most famous export, it's by no means the only one. So let's have a look. Now in this video,
Yeah, obviously there's, Irish, Welsh, English, Cornish, right? I'm forgetting a few.
going to be looking at country by country which languages there are in the British Isles.
Yeah, can't forget Northern Ireland. And I wonder how many of these will be distinctive languages versus dialects. Because if we do dialects, we're going to be here all day.
And in this video, I've decided to put Ireland and Northern Ireland together simply for geographic reasons. So please, nobody start a war in the comments.
Yeah, please don't. Not again.
The first country I'm going to look at is Scotland. I hope you enjoyed the video.
Okay. Scottish Gaelic.
The most famous and romantic language to come from Scotland has got to be Scottish Gaelic.
Gaelic.
Some basic phrases include Slán Java, a toast, Cimara Hashif, how are you? La Nuv Andre Madui, Happy St. Andrew's Day, Alba Gabra,
Alba Gabra. I could say that one.
Scotland Forever, Claymore, meaning
Claymore. Like, you know.
big sword, Sassenach, meaning Englishman or foreigner, literally meaning Saxon,
Is that where the Claymore gets its name for, by the way?
which dates back to the Dark Ages, and Guma Fada Beo Stuart, long live the Stuart. I mean, come on, this is history with Hilbert. I'm gonna put some history in there. Where in Scotland do they speak Gaelic? Mostly in the Western Highlands and Islands. Islands such as Lewis, Harris, Darren, Bob, Mark, and Thomas.
And this is of 2001, so this was 25 years ago, this data. Could change.
Oh, wait, no, those aren't the names. Hold on. Islands like Lewis, Harris, Eust, Skye, Tiree, and Islay. These are the places where Gaelic has remained the strongest, even though many areas of Scotland, which used to be Gaelic speaking, have now either become English speaking or both English and Scots speaking, but I'll get on to that in a minute. Now, Gaelic is a Celtic language and it originally came from Ireland.
Okay, you can see it after Old Irish, so that's probably why it's situated on the western side. These all have a Proto-Celtic tree as an ancestor. So, Irish and Manx. And then I'm imagining we're going to also look at Gaelic, Brythonic, Cornish, Welsh, and Breton.
Now, why did the Scottish Gaelic come from Ireland? Well, I'll explain that. Once upon a time, there was a powerful family living in the north of Ireland called the O'Neill. Now, if you think this name looks familiar, well, that's because
O'Neill.
This is the Old Irish version of the modern name O'Neill, still an important and large family. Now, the O'Neill expanded their kingdom and founded a kingdom called Dal Riada. And Dal Riada was a kingdom that originally was both across the north of Ireland and the southwest of Scotland.
So it's almost like they controlled the pass, you know?
And this is how Gaelic from Ireland came into Scotland. Now, Gaelic is actually not an official language of the United Kingdom, but there is a BBC radio and TV channel which is entirely in Scottish Gaelic.
Wow. Interesting.
Called BBC Alba. And Alba, as you can remember from Alba Gabra, which means Scotland forever, is the Gaelic word for Scotland.
I'm now going to play for you a native speaker speaking some Scottish Gaelic. Smisha Rosemary, Chaim Hokal an Leis de Jace an Balabik Ida Vilgarna Monug. Va Gaelic ag mahad, a Charok Gaelic ag mavahad, agus leishin Chaim Hokal an Dachi for a Russian Klech go bear le fat na Chiche. A Chaganyan sin Chaim Either, Troniscol, agus Yon sich me Gaelic go art ide. Chum in Norsen Shachat immetach bliana Chikisk Trevian Gaelic.
I cannot wait to like have such a low cost, like, you know, one of those like headphones that translate in real time. That's going to preserve so much culture for people because there won't be a need to assimilate because these languages just sound so interesting.
Agus an Norsen Elisach in Gaelic, agus Elisach in it in Gaelic.
Scots way will walls flood. Scots one.
Okay, so we just segued into the next language. Okay.
Now there is some debate as to whether Scots should be considered a language or just a dialect of English.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to make a video about this in future, but for this one I'm just going to treat it as a language. Now we in Scots means small, it doesn't have the same meaning as in English. Lads and lasses are boys and girls. Auld Lang Syne is a song which is often sung at New Year, and it essentially means a long time ago.
So how much of this borrows words and phrases from Scottish Gaelic?
Am fi Glasgow means I'm from Glasgow. A wee drink o iron brew means a drink of bleach. Why wouldn't I fecht for Charlie is why wouldn't I fight for Charlie? Again, the Jacobite
Why wouldn't I fecht with Charlie? Okay, that was horrible.
References. And if you're Dutch, a lot of words in Scots are a lot more like Dutch words. And why is that? Well, you'll just have to wait until the history of Scots for that one. Their sour slays in Athol Braes and the deals at Killycrankio. This is from a very famous song, which I very much enjoy. Link will be in the description. So where do they actually speak Scots? Well,
Pretty much the eastern side.
Well, they speak it on Orkney, not Orkney, Aberdeenshire, Angus and Ayrshire. These are the regions where most Scots speakers are. So if you remember, Scottish Gaelic was very much, or Gaelic rather, was very much spoken in the west, on the Highlands, in the islands. Scots is the other side. Scots is mostly spoken in the east, again clustering
And a lot of this is just a dialect, right?
around these regions of Shetland and Orkney, Aberdeenshire, Angus and Ayrshire. Now, again, to look at the language tree, Scots is a Germanic language. Now, I sort of hinted
So Scots is a Germanic language, alongside English, of course. Interesting.
at this earlier. Scots comes in from Old English. Now, I'll have a quick look into this in just a minute. And its closest relations are then languages such as, obviously, English is a close relation.
Frisian.
And you've also got a very close relation, as I said, to Dutch. You can recognise words Frisian as well, and to a lesser extent the other Germanic languages there. The reason that the Scots language actually exists is because of the Kingdom of Northumbria.
Northumbria, that stretches really long from Scotland down to, I think it did border Mercia, or am I missing a border region?
Now, Northumbria, unlike the modern-day county of Northumberland, was a lot larger, and actually Northumbria stretched right the way from north of the Humber and sometimes even south of the Humber when it occupied the kingdom of Lindsey around modern-day Lincolnshire. It also went right the way up thanks to King Oswald's conquest, or it was probably Oswy actually, who conquered parts of southern Scotland, right the way up to...
Yeah, and they were one of the most formidable kingdoms in the Middle Ages.
To, I think, Abercorn was the northern border of Northumbria. Now, the Northumbrians spoke Old English because they were Anglo-Saxons, and they brought the Old English language into Scotland as well. Now, when Old English was changed and altered because of the Normans and because of French, it evolved into Middle English. Yet in Scotland, where this was much less, the language...
So you had a less assimilation to, or interaction with Norman French, so it kind of like, it carried on its evolution isolated away.
Remained much truer to...
I wonder how that kind of culminates in the future with like people like James I, you know? It's interesting, you know?
Its original Old English roots, and the Scots language was born. I'm now going to play the Scots audiobook version of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter called Peter Kinnan in Scots.
But roon the end o' a cucumber frame, wha did he no meet wi but Meester MacGregor? Meester MacGregor was doon in his hunker setting off small kale,
Oh my gosh, this is a different language. This is not a dialect.
but he louped up and ran after Peter, wagging a scartle and roaring out, "Stop, Briggener!" Peter was gey sair frichted. He stood all ower the garden, for he couldna mind the way back to the...
Obviously, there's some language like not interference. There's like some overlap here where you can obviously pick up words, but this is a different language. I take back everything I said.
Yet, he tint ane o' his shin among the kale, and the other she among the tatties. After lossing them, he rinnan off hours and gaed fester, sae that a jalouse he might have won awa altogether, gin he hadna misfortunately run into a grosset poke and gotten clocht by the large buttons on his jacket.
Yeah. That's a different language, my man. All right, Irish. Or Ireland.
Hello to our Mace mine a haste and leans while at Castle Lego sheer
Next language I'm going to cover is sometimes called Gaelic, but this can be quite confusing as it gets confused with Scottish Gaelic, and Irish people actually prefer when the language is called Irish. Now,
Yeah, a lot of national pride.
a few helpful words and phrases in Irish are fáilte, which means welcome, uisceba, which is the Irish word for whiskey and is actually where whiskey comes from uisceba to whiskey. It's a bit of a long one, but that's where it comes from. Poke Mahone, which is a rather less polite one. You'll have to look that one up yourself.
Let's find out. Let's find out live. Oh. Kiss my arse.
But the Irish are quite proud of it. Now, the main way that most people come into contact outside
Yeah, it's not that bad.
of Ireland with the Irish language is through their names, and I'm going to show you now how to pronounce them. So this one is
All right.
Niamh.
Niam.
Niamh.
The H really carries with no letters after.
Niamh. Siopon. Siopon. Siohan.
Do you know how to say it?
Naum. Naum.
Sounds like he's not sure.
Awif.
Aouf.
Aoifi. Aoif. Aoifif.
I only say that because he's saying it two different ways.
Fi oif.
Each one. Almost.
Okay, so this is how you actually pronounce them. Neve.
Neve.
Siobhan.
Siobhan.
Naomi.
Naomi.
And I think it's Aoife. This one, Aoife. Now, where do they speak
Bro, that's Wi-Fi.
Irish in Ireland? Now, as you can see, there are regions all throughout the Republic of Ireland where Irish is well spoken, much less so in Northern Ireland where there is another majority and a different language, which I'll get into in a minute. But there are some regions which you can see are probably just under 70%.
You can definitely tell where England pushed or migrated people here for, or where they migrated
Irish
people.
speakers, and these regions are called Gaeltachts, and there are several. There's some in Donegal, County Mayo, Connemara, Dingle, and West Muskerry are some of the largest ones. And Gaeltacht means Gaelic or Irish speaking region. Now, Irish is doing very well as a language, and it's one of the official languages of the Republic of Ireland alongside English. Now, to look at the Celtic language tree again, obviously Irish comes from Old Irish and before that Primitive Irish. Now, how did Irish come to Ireland? Well, A long time ago, some fancy European farmers brought new bling with them, and while they were bringing that with them, they also brought a new language with them, a very old type of Irish, which we now call Gaelic.
And where did they come from?
And all the languages like Irish and Gaelic, and a few of the other ones I'm going to cover, are part of the Gaelic family of Celtic languages. Now, a lot more happened in the meantime. So, for example, you get the Norsemen coming over and bringing
The Vikings like established Dublin.
Old Norse. Then you also get the English coming over and they conquer an area around Dublin. Now this area keeps expanding. And you also get the Scots coming and moving into the north, which is where my... So now I'm going to play some of the news from Ireland, which is completely in the Irish language.
So this is like a news report.
Nach féidir leis éon liadú a dhéanamh thuras Sillamán Katie úd tugach conirthaí dóibh Saradánig an rialtas a gocht. Tar is scítear go gcuireach airgad ó chiiste tar hála na mán chuisteach a giste pinch.
Yeah, not a single word.
An ban Katie sínsreacha lear an taranúna lenar dúir scóir starach an íbhana cháin I limana chuineh.
Ulster Scots. So this is Northern Ireland?
But hold on a minute. Who's this dashing young fellow on a horse? It isn't William of Orange, King of Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, England, and also that other place, the Netherlands.
While it still had orange in the flag.
Ulster Scots is then mostly considered to be a dialect of the Scots language, which I covered before, having come in from Scotland. Now then it also makes sense that the highest percentage of speakers of Ulster Scots in Northern Ireland are those in the north, who are then closest geographically.
See, this is just perfectly like done in terms of like making sense. And the closer you are to a region, the more likely you're going to speak a dialect or a different language that's closer to that language that you're closest to. I mean, I love it when things just make sense.
To Scotland, where they came from. Now, what's the history behind this? Why are there Scots speakers in Northern Ireland, a traditionally Gaelic or Gaelic speaking area? Once upon a time, when times were simple, English speakers lived in England and Irish speakers lived in Ireland. Now, as we already covered in the early Middle Ages, Scots began to develop differently from English. Now, the English in, I think, the 12th century invaded part of Ireland around Dublin, and over the next few hundred years they kept expanding and fighting against the Irish. Now, the Irish had one strong base from which they resisted the English, and this was in Ulster. Now, there were Irish Gaelic warlords there who fought constantly against the new invaders, and also the language.
That's pretty good. I mean, England, with that momentum that England had at the time, surprised they didn't just like wipe them out. That would be, a horrible thing. I'm glad that they resisted.
Was a large part of this. The people there were very much still Gaelic speakers and had Gaelic customs and held out against the English, who at this time were also Protestants. So what the English did, who were at this time also unified with the Scottish after James I, was they sent many Englishmen and Scotsmen over to Ulster, to this very Gaelic region, to essentially replace the Irish population. And then you get many people from Scotland who spoke Scots coming into Northern Ireland in an attempt to replace these Gaelic people to assert control over the region. And that's why Scots.
So Ireland is just like this hodgepodge at this point.
Came into Northern Ireland.
Wells. Are we doing Henry? The most different language to all these languages.
I think it's fair to say that Welsh has got a little bit of a reputation of being a language with lots of difficult sounds and really long words that people really don't want to have to learn because they are a real nightmare
Yeah, yeah.
to get out. But, you know, this is completely unfounded. And in this one, I'm just going to look at some really easy little Welsh phrases, you know, very
I feel like he's being sarcastic.
small, a few words. So there's nothing to worry about. So the first one, shme,
Maybe not. Maybe he's being real. Shemay.
is sort of like hello or
Shme.
welcome. Then there's dwi Hilbert, which
Dwi
means
Hilbert.
my name is Hilbert.
Oh, nice.
Borda, which means good
Borda.
morning. Llanfer,
Bro.
is a place where you can visit in Wales. It's very nice.
Oh, it's a place.
Again, nothing too challenging there. So where in Wales do they speak Welsh? Well, pretty much throughout Wales some degree of Welsh is spoken, although in some areas, especially such as Anglesey, Gwynedd and Pembrokeshire, there are clusters of Welsh speakers. Now, Welsh is the only other language in the United Kingdom, apart from English, to have official status, but then only in Wales. And Welsh is taught in, I believe, all schools, and I think roughly a third of schools are completely taught in Welsh. The language of instruction there is Welsh. And
Obviously, you have the Prince of Wales, who previously was Charles. So it's very integrated in some regard.
as you can see, on the west coast, on the western half of Wales, is where Welsh is most spoken. Again, because the eastern side, with the border with England, is where English has had more of an effect on the people there. So again, if we look at the Celtic language tree, we see that
So Welsh is, very far away from English. It's in the Proto-Celtic area, not the Proto-Germanic. And it is of Brythonic.
Wales, instead of being in the Gaelic branch like Irish and Scottish Gaelic, is in the Brythonic branch. Now let's have a look at why there is this distinction between the two. So first of all, once upon a time you had the Brythonic languages being spoken in Britain.
So, of course, the Romans and the Anglo-Saxons, they pushed them west.
Now if you remember, in Ireland, a different group of European farmers, this is the theory that's believed, went to Ireland, and there they spoke the Gaelic languages, although the Gaelic and Brythonic languages were still related. However, when the Anglo-Saxons came in, they brought in a Germanic language, so more like Frisian or Dutch or German, and they pushed the Britons, the Brythonic speakers, into the corners.
And that's, of course, why you get in Cornwall, you have Cornish. Like, you have all the edges of the island being a different language.
And one of the theories is that then Welsh and Cornish are simply versions of the Brythonic that were being spoken there, as well as possibly
Makes sense.
Pictish. I'm going to play a little bit of audio from a Welsh vlog channel, which is completely in Welsh. And again, if you want to know where any of the clips came from, or want to watch them again, or find out more about the languages, then just follow the links in the description below.
Helo, a chroeso i fy sianel. Gwnewch eich hunan yn
I got hello.
gyfforddus. Dwi'n mynd i fod yn gwneud vlogs fel mae'r enw yn driodeud i chi. A maen nhw'n mynd i fod yn Gymraeg fel ydych chi'n gallu clywed. Dwi'n yn gwybod os di rhan fwy o'n chi yn gwylio'r sianeli mawr vlogio fatha Zoella, Pointless Blog, Max Butler, heina i gyd. Dwi yn, ac o'n i'n sbio ar ei fideos nhw, ac o'n i'n meddwl, o, ta beth o Saesneg yn Cymraeg, oherwydd mae vlogio yn beth poblogaidd i wneud, ac o'n i'n meddwl, os na blentyn Cymraeg.
Yeah. All right, England, which we're going to have Cornish. We're going to have English. What else would we have? I don't know what else we would have. I mean, there's obviously foreign speakers, but I wouldn't count those. No offense, because you have those everywhere.
Here's 40 shillings on the drum.
We got to be talking about Cornish, though. Have to.
Come to list and fight the foe today over the hills and far away.
It's got to be what this is. Yep.
How means hello in Cornish.
How?
Fatla Geneth means how are you. Cernau is the Cornish word for Cornwall. Now, where in Cornwall do they speak Cornish? Now,
Not a lot.
Cornish was actually very much in danger of being lost forever because it did actually go extinct. But there have been efforts made in recent years to revive the language, and as such, even though there are very small numbers at the moment, there are areas where Cornish is picking up. Now, some of the main areas in Cornwall are Padstow, Bodmin Moor, Land's End, and the Lizard, and these
The Lizard? That's a place?
are all areas where Cornish is spoken to some degree. Now, I've put this map together myself using other information to clearly show where some clusters of Cornish speakers throughout the county of Cornwall are living, but as you can see, very small numbers at the moment. Now, Cornish is another Celtic language, and it's in the same vein of Celtic languages as Welsh is, so it's slightly more distantly related to Irish and Scottish Gaelic. And Cornish as well came from the Brythonic languages, the same situation with Welsh. When the Anglo-Saxons came in, they pushed the Britons, the Celtic inhabitants of Britain, to the corners, and Cornwall actually held out for a very long time. There were people in Cornwall called the Dumnonii, and the Dumnonii held out against the Anglo-Saxons until they were eventually conquered, I think, by King Athelstan of Wessex. But for
Interesting. Okay.
a very
A lot of
long
history I
time,
don't know.
Cornwall was an independent Celtic kingdom, and they retained the language right the way up into the early 19th century, and now they are trying to revive the language once again. The first time that I ever heard the Cornish language was actually when I was watching TV, and there was an advert for Kelly's Cornish ice cream, which was partially in Cornish, and Kelly's actually does a lot of work to promote the Cornish language. So I'm actually going to show you that advert now to showcase what the Cornish language sounds like. Now, it is partially in English and partially in Cornish, so good luck telling it apart.
Good luck.
Imurez, Nav Cavallo, a Kelly's Cornish ice cream, ag you as tasty as. We're il cavos agon suerio splan, nig a misk, honeycomb crunch, praline caramel, agon wev, berry eaten mess. If you gris old gans clotted cream, dwarf bukis lale. Hans priff you more.
This probably hits a perfect target audience somewhere, but not right here.
In Mons Nagus, a local supermarket. My hello, take home 6 new parlour flavours. Get on.
Get on.
Kelly's, Cornish for ice cream.
All right. Manx. What is Manx? Is this like close to the Scottish border?
And the last language we're going to look at today is the Manx language from the Isle of Man. And
Oh, Isle of Man.
just like Irish and Scottish Gaelic, in
Man,
the Manx
X.
language, the word for their language is also something similar to Gaelic. Now we're going to have a look at some Manx words and phrases. Mormai is good morning.
Moramai.
Fastermai
Good night.
is good afternoon. Guramayed is thank you, and Gaumileshkal is excuse me. Bla is flower, and Cashtel means castle, which is
That's easy.
similar to the Irish cashel. Where do they speak the different dialects? Well, you have Northern Manx, which is spoken in historically these parishes, and Southern Manx, which is spoken there. And it's generally around the edges, the north and south, where Manx is strongest on the Isle of Man. Manx is, again, a Celtic language. It is a Gaelic Celtic
How many people live on the Isle of Man? It's an interesting place.
language from Old Irish, so more closely related to Scottish Gaelic and Irish than to Welsh and Cornish. Now, how did the Isle of Man end up speaking a Gaelic language instead of a Brythonic language? Well, if we go back again, people in Britain spoke Brythonic, and people in Ireland spoke Gaelic as a rule. But the Irish, they came across and they founded the kingdom of Dal Riada, if you remember from Scottish Gaelic. And they also settled on the Isle of Man,
Makes sense, you know, it's a big island out there in the middle of the waterways that they use.
bringing their language, Old Irish, with them. Now, of course, then you get people like the Norsemen coming with Viking raids, and Old Norse is introduced,
Yeah, I bet you a bunch of Vikings went to the Isle of Man.
although Old Norse had but a little effect on the Manx language. Although they were an important presence in the area, they ruled the Isle of Man and the Lords of the Isles for quite a while. Now I'm going to play a little bit of Manx being spoken.
Brian, just inch now begging me well, Ned Madril as in Gow.
She Remnish Gol Magia to Marish of Rega, Kasogin Shilia Eloti Dugaza. Extrailam Gray Nakdugli Mona Gale down could done a good smooth. Renmi Michaelrish Ned Madril train, well, Kate Naga that you had as Renmi Jinu Recordus J. Hugmi Shilia Juna Kring Kate Naga, yes.
Some honourable mentions
Oh no, the languages that died out.
for other languages of the British Isles are Pictish, Norn, and Cumbric, but unfortunately they didn't stick around long enough to be included in this one.
So was Pictish like around during the Roman times?
Alright everybody, thank you very much for watching this video
And then how far did they last?
about the other languages spoken in the British Isles. Now if you're interested in this kind of thing and you're new, just hit the subscribe button and check out some of my other videos.
Really interesting video, you know? I did not even know Manx was a thing. So we learned a little bit more about some of the histories of Scotland and Ireland, Isle of Man. Knew about Cornish and Welsh, but kind of got a little bit more out of it in terms of learning how it sounds and some of the basic words. Appreciate you guys for being here, as always. Peace out, and bye-bye.